Poverty is profitable in a lot of ways. We have businesses that will prey on our community, payday lenders that charge 400 to 700% interest. We have residents that spend more than 50 or 70% of their income on rent and utility, and that's not sustainable. The cost of living for those who are in poverty is much higher than everyone else. The impact of evictions are not just with the families, that when they see their personal property thrown out onto the curb, that is a traumatic event, but it's also traumatic for the neighborhood and the people on the block when they see their neighbors go through that. And I think that looming fear after each eviction is real, and it definitely traumatizes our residents. I think Matthew Desmond said it best, is that eviction is not the result of personal irresponsibility, but it's inevitability. That it's gonna happen because it's not sustainable for people to spend so much of their income on housing. There's a misconception that people in our community are lazy and that they don't wanna work. That's not the reality at all. People get trapped in this cycle of renting and eviction and renting, and we have such a transient neighborhood, like many neighborhoods in Memphis, where it's very hard to establish community when your neighbors are new every other month. People need to understand that families need places to go, and there's not affordable housing in Memphis. We also need to understand that communities are not collectively irresponsible, but there's a collective responsibility that Memphis should have to look out for our neighbors, and we're not doing that. For me, my hope is that we can walk down our street and we see every house with a light on, and right now that's not the reality. So.
For 25 years, I've been in an affordable housing industry. And I say, if I can't live in it, it's not acceptable for me and my daughter. No one should. We have relatively cheap properties available. And so we have this influx of investors from large coastal cities. The rents are probably $400 or $500. The property needs every upgrade you can think of. It's gonna have a pest problem, it's gonna have a sewer problem, the roof is caving in. They don't care, they just board up those units and rent the ones that are left over. You know, we never want to put a tenant out as a landlord. It's just not the landlord that we are. If there is a monetary issue, we can work out payment arrangements and connect them with additional resources. And so we're not gonna put you out for a fee and put that on your credit. We're gonna give you food. We're gonna ask what's happening with you so we can assist you in some way. This problem is not one person's fault, one entity's fault. It is policy. It is continuous redlining by financial institutions. It's the appraisers, and it's the entire real estate community. It's the slumlords who are just trying to make a dollar. It's a big old collusion, American collusion, and we are feeling it at the other end as we deal with the people who are the least of these, at least in terms of income, because I don't necessarily think morally they're the least of them. They just don't have wealth.
The people that are facing eviction are people that are working beside us every day. You think well, they got a good job. They have this, they have that. But you don't know all of the other things that they have to address, all of the other crises that are going on, both COVID and beyond. There isn't a certain demographic. There isn't a person that's quote unquote lazy or unworthy and they face eviction. It's something that could face us all at any given time. We see evictions in lots of different ways in my office. Housing instability or being right there at the brink a lot of time is something that presents after they start talking about what the primary need is, whether that's being a victim of crime, whether that's a veteran trying to access benefits, whether that's a mom trying to figure out childcare. COVID has just exacerbated what was already a problem. We've seen lots of folks who are struggling to stay in their homes. There are so many folks that don't know that help is available to them. And so just educating yourself about the resources that are out there so that as you come into contact with people in your network and beyond, you can be a messenger of all the things that folks can access. People are at the heart of what is happening here, and just being more empathetic and kind, I think that goes a long way.
Tennessee has the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, but it doesn't provide too much protection for tenants. And there is the forcible entry and detainer statute, which is really the eviction process. You could get what's called a writ of possession, which is the order that permits the landlord to get the sheriff's department out there and actually put all their possessions out on the sidewalk. And that's, I think, just about the worst experience I've seen people going through. They're humiliated because it's obvious what's happened, and most of the time people steal everything that was out there. And if people couldn't pay the rent, they don't have moving trucks, they don't have the ability to get, storage place. If you would go down to court and sit in on a docket in the General Sessions Court, what you would see is that I would guess not 1% of tenants are represented by counsel. Yes, it definitely poisons somebody's credit rating. It makes it very hard to get quality rental housing. That kind of forces people into a market that is really like slumlord properties.
The challenge with eviction cases in general is that oftentimes you have unrepresented tenants that are going against a landlord's lawyer. Pre-pandemic, the city of Memphis and Shelby County, we had 2,500 to 3,000 cases filed per month. Far too many for the size of our city. There are many causes for why our eviction rates are so high. The lack of income, poverty are key conditions. The quality of our housing stock is a problem as well. I think that sometimes people are in these units and they just deem it not fit to pay for. We understand that landlords, they're in business. We know that they have to have their revenues to be able to sustain their businesses. However, this is a people business, and we think that if there's some grace and flexibility that can be provided, that we can have a much more sustainable housing situation for many of our families in the city. We've heard from many landlords about the challenge that the moratorium presents to them, because they're not all large investors with big portfolios. Some have very small portfolios and depend on that rent for revenue and for income. That's why I think it's important that we have local government partners, philanthropy, all of these different groups need to work together in order to ensure that we have some resources that'll be available to help with that cliff when it comes. I'm not sure what all has to change, but what I do know is that we cannot accept the status quo. As a system, we have to be thinking about all of these impacts and what it means for all of these people that are a part of providing housing to the families in our city.